Duncan. I am a member of Denny Speakers Club, and the title of my speech is Diction, Dialect and Diversity. Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, during our last meeting of the Denny Speakers Club, the education session was undertaken by our esteemed former president and long-standing member of the Association of Speakers Clubs, Mr. Tony Scott. Tony gave us an interesting, informative and highly amusing talk on communicating. He based his talk on the diversity of dialects that exist within the English-speaking communities throughout the United Kingdom and other areas out with it, and our ability, or inability in some cases, to understand and to communicate with each other, despite the differences and the non-uniformity or ununiformity of the various sections of the English language. Mr. Scott himself ably demonstrated that he had an eloquent command of the English language, and most of us, if not all, understood what he was talking about. Mr. Scott, this lesson gave me food for thought and led me to an idea for the theme of my speech this evening, and my complimentary comments are by way of avoiding his accusations of plagiarism. Those of us here tonight who are of a certain age will remember the standard English that was spoken by the news readers and announcers of the BBC radio about half a century ago. If we heard that spoken nowadays, we would consider it to be stilted, precise and unnatural. Posh is the word that springs to mind. We are all aware there are many dialects within the English-speaking nations, not to mention colloquialisms that prove difficult for strangers to understand. With a son who lives in Dublin, Ireland, and a sister who lives in Ohio, USA, I am gradually acquiring an understanding of the vernacular of these areas when I go there now. Allow me to give you one small example. I was babysitting with my little Irish granddaughter, who is about 18 months old and had been asleep in her cot. When she started to cry, I went over to her, but I couldn't find out what was distressing her. But she continued to sob, saying something that sounded like, "My doodah, my doodah." Little was I to know that in Ireland they called a baby's dummy teat a soother, so the baby was saying, my doodah, her soother. I had been thinking along the lines of the song, "Can't a lady sing the song, doodah?" I was wrong, as I am on many occasions. We in Scotland claim that the language we speak is English, but it very often bears little resemblance to English. One English gym teacher who took over at a local Glasgow school was nonplussed at the beginning of a gym lesson when one of her girl pupils approached her and, handing her some money, asked her, "Oh miss, gonna hod my mos manoj money to left her." Can you blame the teacher? Here in Scotland our two main faults are: one, the glottal stop, where we fail to pronounce the T in the word. For cotton, we say cotton. For rotten, we say rotten. And we even say Harry Potter instead of Harry Potter. Our other most common failing is the failure to pronounce the final syllable, which ends in ing. For walking, we say talking. For talking, we say talking. Then both faults come into play with the T and the ing. When we say painting and planting, it comes out as painting and planting. Don't even mention sitting, knitting, walking or talking. Of course, south of the border in England, the English people have their particular and possibly irritating faults too. They are inclined to add an "ar" at the end of any word that ends in a vowel. They will say the meat was raw and tough. They even pronounce the Scottish town of Alloa as Alloa, and I can tell you the people of Alloa do not appreciate it. In many city areas, inner city areas, we find youth saying think instead of think, and thought instead of thought. The sound th seems to cause some difficulty. Now take the Americans. please. I am inclined to think that the American version of the English language is a somewhat lazy language. They change the letter T to a D. It's less effort. When they speak of a city, they say city, as in the city of New York. When they say pity, they pronounce it pity. Oh, for pity's sake, give me a break, will you? And when, tell me, did B-E-E-N become bin, as in, that's been done? They call New Year, New Year's. And if they tell you they got stew on a Tuesday, just pretend you didn't hear them. So, ladies and gentlemen, does it surprise you that there is misunderstanding and confusion among the English-speaking nations of the world? Did someone once say the English-speaking nations are divided by a common language?